just, if you don't mind, just for the record, if you'll just state your name and your title, even though I've already done that, and then we'll let y'all begin.
Yes, sir. My name is Larry Walker. I'm the Director of the Department of Finance and Administration.
Bishop Woosley, Director of the Office of the Arkansas Lottery.
Hey, members, you all should have a report in front of you. If no one has, if you do not have it, let the staff know. But everyone should have a report as we'll kind of go through during the meeting. I believe everyone has one. Thank you.
Okay. Just to kind of recap, you mentioned the legislation that moved the lottery out from under the commission, lottery commission, rather than the Department, the Governor and the Department of Finance and Administration. That was Act 218. The Governor signed it on February the 26th, 2015. Act 1262 eliminated the compulsory gambling payment and also reduced the payment to the Department of Higher Education. It looked like we're going to have a savings somewhere between $475,000 and $550,000 a year by that act. Act 1076 allowed us to self-bond. We haven't done any of that yet, I don't think, but we'll be considering that over time. Hopefully that'll help us recruit and retain retailers. And then there was the last one, Act 1105, provided the scholarship criteria we're going forward in the next fiscal year. Also have set aside at $1.5 million. Just kind of general organization chart, relationship to the Arkansas government, the governor, the executive branch, DFNA, and Arkansas Scholarship, along with working with higher education and obviously the Arkansas General Assembly. The funds from the lottery go to the ticket sales, how the scholarships are funded, oversaw by DFNA, governor, and also higher education, eventually to fund the Arkansas Scholarship Program. So immediately after the governor signed the bill, we started meeting with the lottery organization, meeting with a bishop and his organization. And we set out a transition, looking at the lottery and that organization, and how can we integrate it into state government? Because they were sort of a different animal out there. So what happened is we brought the lottery under ACES, so the pay and the expenses and things like that are being accounted for through the ACES system. They're now under DFNA or state government policies and procedures, overtime, things like that. We looked at personnel savings. We identified 7 employees, and that is approximately $400,000 in savings when you look at their salary and their matching savings. We're at 69 employees. At one time, there were 87 employees within the lottery organization. Salary savings overtime has been about $550,000. Before it came over to DFNA, their bishop and the commission looked at the regional claims centers, and they eliminated 3 out of the 4. So large claims are brought into Little Rock, eliminated 6 positions, and savings about $600,000 in that particular move. And then when there is a drawing, each day requires oversight. Legislative audit was up doing the oversight. We were paying them to do it. We brought that in-house, and our internal auditing organization is making sure that happens appropriately. So we're going to go immediately down the road. What I'd like to do is to look at ways to stem the reduction in revenue, and then see if we can find ways to increase the revenue. We're going to get into this more specifically as we move forward, and to control costs within the lottery organization itself. What I'd like to do is talk to the governor, and he's in agreement with this, to solicit a contract with a vendor who can assist us in providing a 5-year business plan and a strategic plan for the lottery organization. And then we would have them along that for some period of time, come in and also advise periodically on an as-needed basis. What I'd like to do now, we're going to turn it over to Bishop. I've asked him to cover the games that the lottery has in place today. Also to give you an update on the Camelot recommendations and what the Arkansas Lottery has done to implement those recommendations that we received last year. And then we'll look at some specific metrics, revenues that we've been receiving from different games and how that impacts the lottery and the scholarships and how what the sales are, what the experience we're having with sales. Bishop.
Thank you. Director Walter asked me to do kind of a lottery 101. I know there's a lot of new members here. There's some holdover from the old LOC. So I'm kind of going to walk through what we do. And it's pretty simple. We basically do three things. We sell scratch-off tickets. If you go into your convenience store, you see that big bin holder with 30, 40 scratch-off tickets. Those are what we sell the most of. They make up about 79 to 80% of our revenue. We sell 1s, 2s, 3s, 5s, 10s, and $20 tickets. And that generally makes up, I think, probably about $340 million, $400 to $410 million that we sell each year. We also sell online games. They're also called draw games, terminal generated games. And what these are is when you walk in, you see the little machine, if you ask for a natural stake jackpot ticket, or you ask for a progressive ticket or a cash 3, cash 4 ticket. Those are games that are either drawn twice a day or nightly, except for Sunday nights, or there's an instantaneous draw in the circumstances of our fast play games. These are controlled in state. They are games we developed in state. Some of them are historical lottery games that are played everywhere. Some of them are special to the state. They do very well. We are on pace this year, with some exception where we are on budget with those games. Overall, they do very well. They're not a huge part of our portfolio. They do not make up a huge part of our revenue. However, they are a steady source of revenue for us over the past 5 years. The other thing we do is we sell multi-state online games. Most of you probably know Powerball. We started off with Powerball on October 31st, 2009. It was the first game we offered here in Arkansas from a draw game standpoint. Shortly thereafter, in January of 2010, we started selling Mega Millions tickets. The difference in those two tickets, obviously one's $2 and one is a $1 ticket. However, with Powerball, we are actually a member and have a voting ability in that game. With Mega Millions, we are involved in a cross-sell agreement to where the historical states allow us to sell the game. However, we do not have any type of voting rights as regards to how that game is developed or any changes in that game. And vice versa, they don't have any in Powerball. So we're the same as everyone else on the cross-sell agreement. We also just started a game called Lucky for Life in late January of this year, and it is a regional game. If any of you played, we used to have a game called Decades for Dollars, and that involved 4 states. This is a little bit larger game that involves around 13 states, I believe. And it was originally developed as a game up in the New England area, and it's done very well. And essentially, it's a little bit different from Powerball and Mega Millions in that you can win a certain amount of money each year for life, as opposed to winning a big $80 million or $250 million jackpot. So it's a different play style and attracts a different player. Director Walter also asked me to give an update on the Camelot report. And for those of you who were around, I think somewhere in the first week of December, Camelot was hired as a consultant to come in and essentially review our operations and review our games and performance. And they gave a report in early December of 2014. And I gave a little bit of a response at that time, but I wanted to kind of give an update of some of the things that we've been able to incorporate in what we're doing. And some of the things that we were already doing, and the Camelot report kind of reinforced what we had started doing. Historically, we have been criticized for our vendor costs. Camelot report raised that issue. Shortly after that, we had been negotiating with our online vendor, Intralot, and we came up with a renegotiation of 3 years where we have significantly reduced rate. And that reduced rate will result in almost $5 million over the 49 months remaining on that contract. That equals out to about $1.2 million a year, which you'll see reflected in the budget and the vendor cost reduction. We're also in the process of renegotiating or trying to renegotiate our instant ticket contract. That contract comes up in August of 2016. However, the way the lottery industry works, you generally have to start about a year out if you're not going to extend the contract. So we're trying to get a good rate from them. We did renegotiate that contract in 2012. There was a little bit of a dispute as to the rate. I went in with our staff, renegotiated that contract, and got a reduced rate, and they gave us a $2 million lump sum payment, which all went into scholarships, and we realized some substantial savings from that renegotiation since that time. So hopefully we can get a good deal with them, and if not, we'll go through the RFP process. The other recommendation was that our past administration had inflated salaries. So when I became director in February of 2012, the first thing I did was eliminated the 2 vice president positions. Both of those positions paid $225,000. So right off the bat, those salaries were reduced by right around $450,000. Obviously, my predecessor was paid quite a bit, and the commission was very mindful of that, setting my salary as well. From that standpoint, and along with DFMA reduction in force, we have reduced the workforce up there by about 18 people at a savings of probably around $900,000 since 2012. So from that standpoint, I think we've made quite a bit of progress. Camelot also noted that we have an overpopulated online game portfolio. And what that means is we have too many draw games. If you walk up to the counter, you've got 7, 8, 9 games that you could buy, and they said that's too many. You need to do better with smaller amounts of games and emphasize those games and sell better. We had already begun the process of getting rid of Decades of Dollars because it was an underperforming game. So we stopped that in October of 2014. We had joined Monopoly Millionaires Club. However, the group decided to end that game in December of 2014 because the sales did not end up being what they anticipated, and the liability was too great to continue the game. We may go back in and reform that game under a different matrix, but we'll see how that goes. The other thing we did was we ended the Arkansas 50-50 game in February of 2015. So since that time, along with those recommendations, we've reduced our online games by 2. We added Lucky for Life in February of 2003. We'll continue to work on that as we go along. The other thing they noted was that we were over-reliant on high price point instant games. And part of the criticism that they had was we matured as a lottery too fast, and our previous administration introduced too many high price point tickets. In other words, we introduced the 10s and the 20s much faster than a normal lottery would. If you look at other lotteries' maturations, that is correct. What that did was transform our $1 and $2 and $5 ticket players into $10 and $20 ticket players, which from a sales standpoint is great because the sales go up, but they're a lower margin. You don't make as much money off of those tickets. We started in the winter of 2013, and the Camelot recommendation, I think, kind of bolstered what our plan was to pull some of those higher price tickets off of the market. In other words, not introduce new tickets for a longer length of time where we sell out the inventory that is actually out on the market. And what that does is reduces the availability of those tickets, and it moves your players to some extent down to your $5 and $10 tickets, which are more profitable from the lottery. And what we've seen over the last year is that our $20 sales have actually gone down. Our $10 and $5 sales have actually gone up. So that plan appears to be working, and the good news from that is we make more off a $5 or a $10 ticket. They also noted that our marketing communications lack purpose, brand truth, and consistency. One of the criticisms they had sitting down and talking with them was each commercial was a little bit different than the other. There wasn't any continuity to the theme, and it wasn't when a lottery commercial came on, you could point to it and say, that's an Arkansas lottery commercial. Part of that was that we tried to do some sharing of costs with other states. And so when you're having a commercial that 2 or 3 different states are doing for a game, it's got to fit all 3 states. So it was cheaper, but it was a little bit of a disjointed approach. So what we did in spring of 2014, and along with some of the recommendations and some of the conversations we had with Camelot while they were here, was we began a rebranding campaign. And if you've seen any of our new commercials, they're kind of that funny type commercial, and they have some of the same characters in them. In fact, we just won a lottery industry award for one of our commercials, a beneficiary commercial that you saw with students from all different Arkansas colleges saying thank you for the scholarship. So we will continue to do that. We'll continue to tie those, our advertising and marketing to the benefits of the lottery. Continue to strive to do whatever it is we need to do to improve that. And hopefully, as Director Walker said, maybe with a consultant coming in, they can give us some additional advice as well. They also asked, or noted that we should establish a research division to understand our players and grow our player base. I know the environment at this time is that the state is under a hiring freeze, and we understand that, and it's not something I'm asking for, but I do think there is something to this recommendation. I had previously requested our commission if I could hire an analyst and a research and development person, and at that point it was something that was put on hold, but I do think it's something we need to continue to look into as we go further down. What we're going to need to know is who our players are, what they like to play, what works, what doesn't. And in order to do that, you're going to have an analyst and a research and development person to help you along those ways. In addition, we'll have to do a segmentation study that tells us who our players are and what they like. The other recommendation was to protect the lottery as an entity and as a consumer business. And the end of the Camelot report noted that a lot of this could be accomplished by doing what Act 218 did, which placed us under DFNA and insulated the lottery and placed the lottery in a situation where there was support from the governor and DFNA. So to that extent, hopefully that will do a lot towards consumer confidence and the image of the lottery, and we will continue and do what we're doing at this point. Hopefully that will work. It also noted that our MSRs, who are marketing sales representatives, who are out in the state and they go to our retailers, did not have the tools they needed in order to do their job. And it recommended that they have some sales automation software. And to, I had to ask them what exactly that meant, but essentially they're going to walk around with an iPad that will give them real-time inventory sales updates. If they go into the Quick Pack in Jacksonville, they can actually go on their iPad and it says, well, the Quick Pack sells more ones and twos, and therefore we need to make sure their inventory of ones and two tickets are what they need to be. We don't need to be taking $10 tickets in there when they've got $10 tickets that have been sitting in the bin for 45 days. So in the budget, I'd asked for 1/2 of a year because it would take us a while to implement that, of the sales automation software. We'd have to bid it out. There's 2 or 3 in the nation. We've priced them out, and it is going to be something where you have to buy the software and you have to buy the iPad, but I think it's something that's worthwhile in the end, and so that's part of the budget as well. They also noted that going to our retail stores that we needed to achieve better retail execution of the product. And one of the things they noted was that we should probably consider segmenting our retailers. In other words, if you have 1,900 retailers and the top 20 or 30% sell 70% of your product, you need to visit them more often. They need to be seen more often. We need to change the way we visit our retailers. Right now, whether you sell $2,000 a week or $30,000 a week, we see you twice a month. We come in, look at your inventory, look at your signage. They have asked us to develop, or said that we should develop a plan to where we change that and see our better executing retailers more often. And we're moving towards that. Hopefully we'll have that plan in place sometime in this next fiscal year. They also advised us to focus on consumer comprehension of online games and differentiated games. Part of that goes back 2 or 3 slides ago where we reduced the number of online games we have. The other part of it goes back to one of the plans we have. If you go in any retail establishment, you'll see a Mega Millions and a Powerball jackpot sign hanging up on the wall or in the window. We're going to buy jackpot signs for our in-state game, National State Jackpot. It's one of those things to where it's a lot of word-of-mouth game, but if you go into the store and you actually see where the jackpot is, the fact that it's growing, it will increase sales, and that's one of the things they asked us to do. They also asked us to do a segmentation study, or advised us to do a segmentation study, which we're working with our instant vendor to get done as well. So we'll start achieving that here in the next 6 months. Finally, I think they asked us to reboot the lottery's image by driving our beneficiary understanding. The commercial I referenced earlier was our beneficiary commercial, and it was a minute long, and our advertising agency went all over the state to every single university and got Arkansas students who had received the lottery scholarship come along and say how it's affected us, and thank you for 5 years of lottery scholarships. Like I said, it won an award, and it's something that people feel better about buying a ticket, and whether they win or they lose, they know it's going to a good cause. And so we've started that program, and we've started the beneficiary campaign a little bit before Camelot came in. It was happening as they were doing their recommendations, and we coupled that with our 5-year anniversary. Fortunately, you know, even though our 5-year anniversary is about over, we have a new milestone. We've hit $500 million of scholarships since the start of the lottery. So our new campaign will be $500 million of lottery scholarships, and along those same lines, really tie the lottery to the scholarship benefit and what we've done for scholarships here in Arkansas over the course of time. Any questions about the Camelot, or shall I keep going into the other parts?
Representative Lowry, I had that you had a question. You want to go ahead and do that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Woosley, you referenced that one of the recommendations of Camelot was increasing the player base. And I really am asking this question to gain your institutional knowledge about one of the issues that came up in the last session, which was that we eliminated the $200,000 towards combating compulsive gambling. I understand those two issues are kind of in a dynamic conflict with one another, increasing the player base while you're also trying to educate as far as compulsive gambling. But I want to ask about and I understand the impact of that was to make more money available for scholarships. But is there justification of saying that the $200,000 really was not enough to be able to make a dent in the problem, or do you have any kind of information you can give us of whether that expenditure was helpful?
I don't have any empirical information that I could give you to say that the $200,000 resulted in less compulsive gambling issues or anything along those lines. That was one of those payments that we made solely as the only lottery gaming entity in the state. No other gaming entity contributed to that. But to your point, and I hope this is what we accomplished by expanding the player base, would be us having more people play, and therefore they're spending, it's less per player, instead of relying on 15% of the population to spend more. You're relying on 30% of the population, which will increase your number of players. However, it'll thin out the spend and move it over a larger population base. So if we were to achieve that, you would think that compulsive gambling might be reduced because there's more people spending less. But I'm not an expert in that regard by any means, and I don't pretend to be. But that's our goal, is to have more people spend less instead of relying on just a small segmented amount of people.
Well, and let me just follow up on that and ask you if this would be an appropriate perspective, that if you have a wider base, obviously you're going to have more money coming into the system, which may be able to better fund the compulsive gambling assistance without really undermining your input of revenues, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's something hopefully we can look at in the future. I know there's some of us that were really against removing that money. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I believe Senator Elliott, do you have a question?
Yes, I do, Mr. Chair. Do you know, Mr. Wolseley, in other states that have lotteries, do they all require a set aside for addressing the gambling issues, or is it a mixed bag?
It's probably a mixed bag. There's such variation in the lottery industry in that we are one of the very few lotteries, and this is not a complaint, this is me saying, we're one of the very few lotteries that all we do is sell draw game tickets and instant tickets. For instance, Kansas Lottery, Maryland Lottery, West Virginia Lottery has a horse track. The Maryland lottery has casinos and VLTs, so it's different everywhere, and the actual predatory nature of whatever the gaming may be is different everywhere. So, to answer, quick answer your questions, I can find out, but I don't have anything on the top of my head to tell you that. But it's so much different what every lottery does, there's probably something different in every state as far as that type of funding goes.
Okay, and about, thank you for that, and about the information that you were, that you will be able to find out based on one of the recommendations from Camelot, that you will be able to know who's actually playing, I guess, dig down into the demographics. Could you describe for me exactly what it is you expect to know about the folks who are playing?
We've had two demographic studies conducted. We just had one done probably about 2 months ago. And it is 180 pages up, so I couldn't begin to summarize. But essentially what I believe, and I could be off a little bit, it shows, is that our normal player, I believe, makes between like $65,000 and $25,000 a year. And as far as the demographics go, it really breaks down along the same lines as the rest of our population. 10% of our players may be African American, 65% may be white Caucasians, but I mean, it's broken down in several different ways. I'm happy to get that to whoever wants to see it as well.
I would really, I'd like to. All right, thank you, Mr. Chair.
And that would be great, because that's been a question, so I'm glad to hear that you have that. Just one question from me. If you could expand a little bit, I heard you mention something about a consultant. Are we going to put that out for bid, and if so, the timeline on that? Do we have anything?
We're in the final stages of getting the bid ready, so that it should maybe ready by the end of the week or early next week.
Okay. And how long are we going to have it out there, and then you all make your decision and bring it back before this committee? Is that the way you go?
Yes, sir. In visiting with state procurement, as I understand it, you might be looking at an August date to where it's awarded, or sometime in that time frame.
Okay. Senator Teague?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to thank you for letting me be on this committee. I just have a question or two.
Yes, sir.
Bishop, I'm online on the Arkansas Scholarship Lottery website. How do I buy a ticket on here?
You can't buy a ticket over our
When you're
website.
talking about online, what are you talking about?
It's a term of art in the industry. It's a draw game. They call them online tickets. It's just what they've been called for longer than I've been alive, probably.
So does it have anything to do with online
No,
as far
sir.
as geekish things?
No, sir. No, sir. It is strictly, the only online element is when I press a button, the computer tells it to spin a Powerball ticket out. But the transaction's cash right there at the retail location.
Okay, that helps me. And this contract we're talking about, are we doing an RFP or
I think in RQ, but yes, sir.
RFP? And then, same players, there's 2 or 3 players in the whole industry maybe, is that?
This would actually be something that a different type of vendor would probably bid on. Now, I'm not saying there won't be, there's the big 4 based on the lottery industry, which is Scientific Games, GTEC, Intralot, and Pollard. They all do similar but different things, but there are outfits, there are companies within the industry that, do audits, do consulting work. Kentucky recently had someone just come in and look at their retail operations. You can segment it down to a small amount, or you can just do an overall umbrella of something. So I'm assuming there'll be 3 or 4 companies that traditionally bid on these types of things that we probably see.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And thank you, Mr. Teague, and like that question with the online, to be honest with you, I'm going to give full credit to Representative Ritchie, because whenever we started this, he actually said, we're going to have a lot of new members, and we may understand this, but there's a lot of people here that do not, and that is the nature of this legislative business. So and I'll speak for the whole committee, it's our desire with this to make sure that everybody totally understands this business. We understand that we've had some issues. I heard that you say that one of the suggestions of Camelot was that you have the support of the governor, the support of DFNA. It also said one other thing. It said that you'd have the support of the legislature, and I want to throw that in there because I have read that report back and forth. Now, that doesn't mean that we're not going to do our due diligence and ask you the hard questions and make sure you're doing the correct thing, but that is part of also that you left out, probably intentionally, is it did say that it does need the support of this legislature to be successful. So with that, I'll let you continue. Representative Ritchie?
I just want to let the members know that we do have a few copies of the Camelot report, if you want to. There's a few of them in binders, not a lot of them, but we can get you copies if you want the full copy. It's great at bedtime reading. But I mean, it does give you a lot of good info if you want to be able to look through this and get a better understanding of how the lottery works.
I also have a copy of that online.
Super. Senator T, do you have a follow-up?
So, just to follow up, so we were down 1.6 million in revenue, is that basically right, for April?
Yes,
Or profit, or what's the term?
It'd be revenue. And, we're down depending on what I'm talking about, we're down in sales. We ended up about 1.1, I believe, down in actual proceeds that we transferred over versus what we thought we budgeted.
In here in just a moment, we'll go over the budget, and there should be some good detail about where we are going to annualize out as compared to the budget and actual, and also what our estimates are on scholarships and how much revenue we have available to service that or not to service that.
Could Ms. Haley send us the link to the Camelot Scholarship? Could she email us to us?
Yes, sir.
If she can figure out how to turn her computer on, thank you.
Continue on. Thank you.
Yes, sir. We have 4 main contracts. We have a draw game online contract, which is Intralot. We have an instant ticket contract, which is Scientific Games. I mentioned that we have renegotiated or trying to renegotiate those. We also have an advertising and a banking contract. Our advertising contract is based on a $5 million budget. It's approximately 1.2% of sales, which is within industry standards. For the sake of comparison with other states, on a per capita basis, we rank 28th out of 44 lotteries in what we spend per cap on our advertising, so we're a little bit on the low end, which is a good thing. We're currently contracted with Mitchell Communications Group and Manning Holcomb Partners. We did that in July of 2014. That will be up for renewal, and a decision will need to be made fairly quickly on that one. We have the ability to extend that for 3-year terms, so we can extend that for a year or up to 3 years, depending on what Director Walther and the governor and DFA want to do with that. That is up for extension in July of this year. We also have a comprehensive banking services contract, and essentially it's our bank. It's our bank that handles all of our transactions, cashes all of our checks, holds our deposits, and has our accounts. Bank of the Ozarks won that bid in September of 2009. There's an option for renewal up to 3 additional times. That is up for rebid in July of 2016. We'll offer up an opinion as to whether or not we'd like to renew that or extend that beyond that, but they are our banking partner, and we've had a good relationship with them thus far. Retailers, we've got 1,903 retailers throughout the state, and those retailers range from some of the Walmarts